Right now, there's a fire burning in Oregon the size of New York City. A heat wave recently rolled through the Pacific Northwest that melted power lines and cracked roadways in two. Hurricanes and flooding in the east have battered one community after the other. Earlier this year, a snowstorm engulfed the typically scorching state of Texas and claimed the lives of hundreds of people. And of course, we saw what happened in Europe with the flooding. These extreme, once-in-a-century weather events are now commonplace. The dangers of climate change are here, and they are real, the dangers of climate change. Fighting climate change will take not only new technologies and new ways of thinking, but something more basic. It will take people, lots of people, working together to fight climate change from the ground up. This morning, I joined with my Democratic colleagues from the House and Senate to push a bold new approach to fighting climate change that will help create thousands of good-paying jobs in the process. The Civilian Climate Corps, CCC. The idea at the core of the Civilian Climate Corps harkens back to the New Deal, when hundreds of thousands of Americans were put to work on conservation and infrastructure projects across the country. During the Great Depression, President Roosevelt needed ways to put Americans to work and to do it fast. And he found a way to do it while having those workers do something enormously productive for the country. Building public works and dams and bridges and airfields and flood and forest fire prevention. The Civilian Conservation Corps, as it was called at the time, was a brilliant idea, a success that should be harnessed once again, this time to fight climate change. The bottom line, we need a CCC for the 21st century. We can put Americans to work on climate and resiliency projects. We can put Americans to work on clean energy initiatives across the country. We can put Americans to work helping poorer and more disconnected communities help challenge of climate change. And we can create millions of good-paying, or hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs, particularly focusing on the poorer communities, the communities of color that have been left out in the past. The Civilian Climate Corps can be one of the largest employment projects and one of the largest environmental projects at the same time. And I believe the Senate should work to make this a reality this year. I believe the CCC, the Civilian Climate Corps, should be one of the pillars of the American Jobs and Family Plan. And as Majority Leader, I will ensure that CCC be included in the upcoming budget reconciliation package in as big and bold a way as possible. Next, finally, later the Senate will pass a long overdue fix to the Crime Victims Fund to help Americans stitch back their lives after falling victim to violent crime. As hard as it is to suffer the trauma of violent crime, survivors almost always face enormous financial hardship in the immediate aftermath. Just think about health care or mental health services for victims of human trafficking or sexual assault, emergency housing for victims of serious domestic abuse, legal fees for those who try to pursue justice for the crime committed against them. Those services can cost tens of thousands of dollars. So, for nearly 35 years, the Justice Department has operated a crime victims fund that uses money from federal convictions and fines to help survivors of violent crime. It's a simple idea. It's helped thousands and thousands of Americans during the most challenging moments of their lives. But today, this popular and effective program is in danger of going into the red. Compared to 5 years ago, the Crime Victims Fund could fall to less than 1/20th of the former size by the end of the next fiscal year. Well, the Senate is not going to abandon Americans who have survived violent crimes. Today, the Senate will pass legislation to replenish the Crime Victims Fund and set it on a path toward long-term stability. The Crime Victims Fund has been a beacon of hope and healing for countless survivors over the decades. With today's vote, survivors of violent crime can rest assured that it will continue to be that beacon of hope and healing for decades more to come.